Hey there, good afternoon to you. It is 5:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up 5:30, Luke Rosiak is here from the Daily Wire. We'll get an update from him on what's going on in Fairfax County. They're trying to figure out how they handle disputes over porn books in the schools. So they hired a lady who's, she's something else. She really is. Luke Rosiak exposes all of it. Coming up. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Whew. Man, more violence in the country thanks to Joe Biden's open border policies. It's too bad. His open brain is leading to open border policies. The headline, Times Square shooting. Armed and dangerous teen migrant arrested after woman shot, firing on cops. A teenage migrant gunman who shot a woman at a Times Square clothing store Thursday night before opening fire on police officers was taken into custody Friday afternoon following a brief manhunt. That's all this news developing this afternoon here. Details about the arrest of Jose Alejandro Rivas Figueroa, 15, were not disclosed. At an earlier news conference, authorities said the teen was living in a temporary shelter after migrating from Venezuela. He entered the U.S. in September and was staying at the Stratford Arms Hotel, which houses migrants, said the NYPD Chief of Patrol, John Chell. Okay, so he came in recently into the United States, one would assume illegally into the United States. And he just got here, and he's shooting people up in the streets of New York. He entered the U.S. in September, yeah. And Rivas Figueroa was part of a trio, two 15-year-olds and a 16-year-old. This is the trend, isn't it? How many teenagers are involved in these horrific acts of violence right now? They entered a JD Sports store on West 42nd Street and Broadway and grabbed some clothes before attempting to leave. A security guard confronted them and recovered the merchandise, Chell said. That's the NYPD Chief of Patrol. Quote, at this time, our suspect takes out a .45 caliber handgun, shoots at her into a crowd, Chell said. Rivas Figueroa missed his intended target, and a 37-year-old woman who was visiting from Brazil was struck in the leg by gunfire, said police. Two of the teens fled the location. One of the 15-year-olds was arrested by responding officers. Another officer chased Rivas Figueroa. Quote, you saw the video. He turns once, fires towards our officer, Chell told reporters. Our officer takes his gun out. He cannot return fire. There's too many people in his way. As the foot chase continued, the shooter fired again at the officer and fled into a subway station and onto the tracks before coming up to the street. The 16-year-old was arrested Friday morning. Investigators are still trying to determine the arrested suspect's alleged roles in Thursday's shooting. And then they go on to praise the cops who were involved here. So this is the chaos that Joe Biden has brought upon our country. And it's a part of, we see that they keep letting terrorists get through the border. They're running free all over the country. Occasionally we get a leak from inside of the federal government that you'll see Janie Terr at the Daily Caller News Foundation cover, or Bill Maloogian over at Fox News, that, there's this terrorist they've either finally brought into custody or is missing right now. And every day we get another story like this. It's unfortunate because just the sheer volume of them makes it feel like it's so commonplace. So yet another impact of all of this illegal immigration, which, at the beginning of this week, the Biden administration's plan, and Democrats in Congress, their plan was we need to transfer blame for all of this over to Republicans, the border crisis. Biden campaigned on opening our border, welcoming the world to illegally immigrate across it. And then when they did and they showed up and they thanked Joe Biden, thank you, Joe Biden, thank you. They were brought into the United States at taxpayer expense. We were all involved in a human trafficking operation against our will. And now we have the chaos that we see before us. And so voters hate it. Voters hate it. This has been one of those weeks where you realize that things, if the election is allowed to be conducted fairly, and if the media were to report on all of this, even a little bit, it would be a landslide for Trump. Trump would be the nominee. Trump is the nominee, but he would win in the general election. And a lot of this is immigration and the economy. Those are the two big issues. Huge. All the swing states, number one issue, this immigration crisis, border crisis. And Donald Trump leading by leaps and bounds. And my guess is, at the conclusion of this week, man, I'm looking forward to seeing some of these surveys of American sentiment, not only nationwide polling, but in particular these swing states. What are they thinking about all of this? As Tim Graham was just saying a moment ago from Newsbusters, CNN and MSNBC, they were carrying live footage of the Supreme Court hearing yesterday. And you can't really, there's no video to show people. This is an audio-only feed of the Supreme Court hearing about the left's ballot rigging in Colorado. Now, we're still awaiting a decision from the Supreme Court in that case. But they had to figure out a complicated way to present this in a visual format. So if you watched on CNN, I went and checked it. The way they were doing it was they put the images on screen of each of the justices and the attorneys. And when they were speaking and it was being piped with the audio feed, they would brighten the picture to show you that this is the person who's speaking right now. They'd have all sorts of graphics going across the screen. They would try and put up chyrons that would show what the topic of the conversation was, trying to capture the attention of the CNN audience to draw them into this Supreme Court hearing under the belief, obviously, that this would somehow damage Trump. This would be bad for Trump. And in fact, it went great for Trump yesterday. And more importantly, great for our republic. Because the Supreme Court, all the way down to the lefty justices, concluded, wait a second, it's not democratic to remove a major political candidate from the ballot, any candidate from the ballot, and deprive the voters of the option for that person. It's anti-democratic. It's fascistic. And so yesterday you get that story. And then, of course, the Hur report comes out and it's like, yeah, Biden's brain doesn't work. He's incapable of testifying before a jury. And if he did, they'd be so sympathetic to his doddering state that they would just let him go. They would say, no, you're not guilty. He's too old. He's not with it. He's kind of a sympathetic figure. No, we're not going to find him guilty. That's the basis for why Robert Hur didn't bring charges. And so I don't know what the surveys are going to show next week, but I don't think they're going to work out well for Joe. My guess is this time next week, even earlier next week, I'm going to be giving you a new low Joe update. The lowest marks of Biden's presidency. And so that's why I've been saying that, where does this go from here? Well, the left they don't throw in the towel. It's not like they're just going to get, shoot, we screwed up. We had, Biden. It's too obvious now. The people are going to vote against us. Let's gather our things. Let's, brush off our shoulders. We'll be fine. We'll get them next time. No, that's not the way they operate. No, the aggression is going to really mount up. So we'll see what happens over the weekend. But the aggression is going to really mount up here, especially about demonizing Trump. If they can figure out a way to destroy this guy, they're going for it. And this is the whole, in terms of the polling, the Biden campaign hookshot has been, can we convict Trump? If we can convict him, we can change some of the math here. Now, I don't know if that's actually true. It's unknowable until it happens. But convicting Trump, does that lead to a backlash? Do people support Trump more? Certainly on the right, they will. They don't care. In fact, martyring Trump is a way to solidify support on the right. It's that independence, the independence. Or does it activate voters on the left who would have otherwise stayed home? That's really always the big calculus, right? How do you get people to show up? Who stays home? Who's apathetic? Who's energized? That's the real thing. It's typically not vote switching. It's turnout. So what will happen? We'll see. We'll see. But that's their overriding desire. They've got to convict him. They've got to get this thing to trial. So Jack Smith is rushing here. He's doing everything he can to make that happen before the election, despite the fact that the Justice Department has all these various policies against, we don't do that. We don't do that. We don't interfere in elections. No major steps before an election. That's all going out the window. Those rules, super inconvenient. Let's get rid of those. We've got to go after them. As far as the Justice Department is concerned, the White House today was arguing, like, Republicans say we live in a two-tiered system of justice. This report proves we aren't, or or whatever. I mean, Ian Sams came out today with this big spin job at the White House.
They have made up claims of a two-tiered system of justice between Republicans and Democrats.
Honestly, tell that to every single pro-life person praying outside of an abortion mill who's been arrested and is now facing 10 years in prison because of the Biden Justice Department. Say that to them. And then simultaneously, say that to the people who got away with firebombing pro-life pregnancy centers and were never caught because they did it in the dark, according to Merrick Garland. It was at night. It was hard to catch them. That's insane. That's insanity. Two-tiered system of justice. Phooey.
Claims of a two-tiered system of justice between Republicans and Democrats, they have denigrated the rule of law for political purposes.
That's you. That's you.
That reality creates a ton of pressure. And in that pressurized political environment, when the inevitable conclusion is that the facts and the evidence don't support any charges, you're left to wonder why this report spends time making gratuitous and inappropriate criticisms of the president.
Yeah, anyway, that's so Ian Sams is saying that it's also politicized. They say it's politicized. Like, the Republicans are wrong to say it's politicized, but today's report is politicized, the one that says that Joe Biden's brain doesn't work. Okay, what are you arguing? They're having trouble settling on a talking point. Huh. Hey, I want to shift gears to one other topic real quick, because this is something I wanted to make sure to hit today. The left is starting to turn on Biden. Lefty, celebrities are turning on Biden. And they're not happy with the state of affairs right now. And they're saying it out loud. It's like this very interesting phenomenon taking place. One of them is the sports guy over at ESPN, Stephen A. Smith. He's I think he's one of the highest paid guys at ESPN. But Stephen A. Smith was ranting this week about the state of affairs in our country right now. And I don't know, it could be an indicator of something bigger.
What it came down to for me is this. I see homeless folks in the streets of New York all the time that are American citizens. I damn sure see them in California. We've got poor, impoverished, starving people who were born and raised in this nation. How in the hell do we come up with a $53 million pilot program for illegals, but folks who are here legally are born here, we don't have enough for them?
That's
Just
right.
like we could come up with billions for Ukraine, but somehow, some way, we can't fix the homeless problem. I'm down for helping Israel. I'm down for helping address the situations with the Israeli-Palestinian.
And we had a caller earlier this week, remember, who raised this very point. Why aren't we helping homeless people? We have all these homeless people covering the streets of America, and we're helping foreign nationals illegally invade our country, and we're trying to solve every other country's foreign policy conflict?
In conflict, okay? I'm down for helping the Ukrainians and fighting off Russia. What about poor and desolate citizens here? How the hell do you print money for foreign countries, but you don't print that money to help eradicate folks that are starving right here in the streets of America, who were born and raised here? This is what I'm talking about. And so when you have something like that, what's the one way to eradicate it? Yes, you got to have a flourishing economy. Yes, you can't have inflation. Yes, you can't be on the verge of a recession. Milk don't need to cost $7. Bread don't need to cost $5. Don't get me started with how much sugar costs. You can talk about employment all you want to. You can talk about the labor participation rate. But guess what? If you ain't making no damn money and you got to get two jobs.
He's right.
To pay the same prices or to buy the same amount of stuff that you used to buy, and the price is higher than it used to be because of inflation, then
right.
Guess what? What are you really accomplishing? That's why Trump is on the verge of getting elected.
I'm telling you, listen to this guy. So Stephen A. Smith, what is he, on the phone with Dr. E.J. Antoni or something? That's exactly right. So all these jobs reports that the White House keeps crowing about, oh, it's so good, the economy's so good, employment's so great. You know what's really happening? People are taking multiple part-time jobs. Those jobs are being double counted, and we're being told that the economy is flourishing. Multiple part-time jobs for what? Just to afford the same standard of living that these people had in the first place. That's actually happening. So I don't know. Stephen A. Smith must be studying the, E.J. Antoni's Twitter account or something, because he's right about that. That's what's really happening. And a lot of economists, in all the coverage here, a lot of the regime defending economists leave that out of the math. Smith, right on that front. All right, hold up. I've got another celebrity who's breaking off too. He's like, wait a second, this is crazy. I've been lied to about Donald Trump. Yeah, now you've got various celebrities, influencers, lefties, who are coming out and saying, boy, life was better under Trump. I think the media kind of have been lying to me. And among those is a comedian and actor by the name of Michael Rappaport. He was on a podcast called, I think it's the PBD podcast. I think that's what they call it. I want to make sure to appropriately credit. And he said, oh, first of all, did we censor this? I want to make sure. Yes, we did. Okay. He likes to intersperse his sentences with curse words as if they're commas. Here is Michael Rappaport saying, I was wrong about a lot of things involving Trump, especially this. Remember the Charlottesville both sides lie? You know, the one where Trump condemned neo-Nazis, and of course the media left all of that out when they would play any clips from him or they'd summarize what he said. They lied about it. Michael Rappaport says, I was lied to.
Here's why I think you're going to vote for him this time. Because you've seen what happened under his first term. You didn't like it. He's the pig, and he's got the mean tweets, and he's orange. But life was good. There was no wars. The economy was going good. But damn, he's annoying to look at. But you also can acknowledge that the media had a major role in a major role in that.
When you take a step back.
Yes. You also acknowledge that.
Because I will
also
acknowledge that, that one thing about the Charlottesville that I ranted about.
Yes.
And I was wrong.
But the both sides thing.
Yeah, and I respect
so irresponsible.
And I respect.
Wait, let me hear him out. Hang on, go a little bit more. What do you mean by that? You were wrong on that.
No, because he said the both sides. There's good people on both sides, and when you see the full quote, that wasn't what he said.
No, and they were lying. Rappaport went on. He said, "There's no way he's voting for Biden this cycle, or Kamala, or even greasy Gavin Newsom." He says, "I came from California. I don't want California to be America." He's right about that. So are people waking up? Some. We'll see what happens next. I'll tell you what's happening next here. We're going to be joined by Luke Rosiak from the Daily Wire to talk about Fairfax County, Virginia, and what's happening in those schools. Pray for the children, please. Welcome back to the Vince Coglianese Show. If you're a parent or just a citizen who's concerned about what's being taught inside of the schools of Fairfax County, well, you would think there'd be a means to A, find out, and B, object when they're teaching, say, pornography in the classroom. And it turns out there is a method for doing that. You can register an objection, but the person who's going to consider your objection, well, they're a freak. And for that, I want to talk about this story with Luke Rosiak now. He's a reporter over at the Daily Wire. He's got a great piece this week. It's called Virginia's Largest School District Put a Kink-Affirming Bondage Specialist in Charge of Reviewing Parent Complaints about Books. What's going on here? Let's ask Luke Rosiak. Great to have you with us, sir.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for having me.
Crazy. So Fairfax County, I mean, people know Northern Virginia by this point is a place for all sorts of wild stories just like this. Tell us what's happening in Fairfax.
Well, so if you encounter a book that you think is inappropriate for school, say kids are reading a book that contains porn or something like that, you can file a complaint and have you fill out the form. And it, goes into this ether where you assume that it's evaluated and responded to appropriately. What actually happens is it goes to something called the Challenged Materials Interdepartmental Review Committee. And so
I'm just like so Orwellian, even as you're beginning to describe it, but go ahead.
So on January 25th, which I think right after Carl Frisch became chairman of the school board, he appointed to this committee, each school board member, a couple school board members get to make an appointment. And so he selected as his person a woman named Layla Cooper, who is a professional sex therapist who focuses on, quote, affirming and social justice approach with the LGBTQIA community and people of color. I am kink and non-monogamy informed and affirming. My work is focused on sex and gender issues, including transgender issues, sexual orientation, and kink/BDSM.
Wait.
Bias. It's a BDSM. Don't Google it, but it means people who get off on physically abusing others and humiliation.
Yeah, it's like a consensual sexual torture situation. So, wait, okay. All right, so that I was going to ask you about that. Okay, there's that. And then did you say something non-monogamous affirming? Is that what, in other words, like she's...
Yeah, and so her professional bio goes on. Her expertise includes, but is not limited to, navigating non-monogamy, i.e. polyamory, open relationships, swingers, monogamish, thruples, etc., kinky sex, i.e. BDSM, group sex, fetish, painful sex, etc. So this is there's 1.4 million people in Fairfax County, and all they needed is someone who just kind of represents the ordinary view of like, oh, that's appropriate for kids or not. Like, let's just give a second glance at something that a resident flagged, and give the general consensus of if it's normal or not. But they found this woman with that background to be the arbiter of, this is actually normal and not overly sexual for kids or not.
Right. Okay. So the lady in charge of assessing the decency of the books in Fairfax County is a torture fetishist and pro polygamy. Okay, that makes sense. That tracks. So, how much is this woman paid? Does she actually get paid by the Fairfax County residents?
No, I mean, there aren't that many challenges and, of these books. And if there is a challenge, the committee will be convened. They won't tell me who else sits on this committee. I asked the school spokesman. I asked Carl Frisch. They won't even say what the composition of this board is. After I asked Frisch and Cooper about it, Cooper told me that she has resigned from the board to avoid causing a distraction to the good work that Carl Frisch is doing. So essentially, when I noticed it, suddenly they undid the appointment because it was politically damaging for Frisch.
And the type of stuff, I mean, all those hilarious things that you just listed, which are actually kind of cruel and sick. The fact that she was all on board with them and like that's her life, is like these are all of those issues, the LGBTQIA plus. That's basically where all of this pornography keeps slipping into the schools under the guise of that there's some sort of virtue to that pornographic material, and that's what people like Carl Frisch and this lady believe, right?
Yeah, I mean, I should say the lady said that her interest in being on this committee was not related to her work as a sex therapist. That was her position.
Just a spillover benefit.
She said she just wanted diverse books, but people aren't challenging books because they're diverse. I mean, they're just using that language diverse to mean sexualizing children, basically, I think. And so this committee met in 2021 for sort of the most infamous challenge of genderqueer. And they claimed that the cartoon of this, and this isn't really, everyone who talks about this book is like, oh, you haven't read it. Like, I've read it. It takes 10 minutes to read. It's a cartoon. It depicts someone who is psychologically lost and deeply disturbed. The girl in it goes to a hardcore porn company and does all this weird stuff. It's got the pictures of the, oral sex and all that. But they claim that it should stay in school because the cartoon is, quote, scientifically based. So first of all, that's not even a sentence. Scientifically based is not grammatically correct or have any meaning in the English language. It's not, there's nothing scientific about it. So basically, the committee wrote this report that makes no sense, and they kept genderqueer in the school.
I mean, that doesn't even. I mean, you could by that rationale, you could put snuff films into every single classroom and say, "Oh, it's based on." There's a scientific basis for the homicide you're now witnessing.
Yeah, it makes no sense, and that was what happened. Is a woman went to the school board meeting and read from genderqueer. And they actually turned off her mic because they said, ma'am, there are children in the audience, and what you're saying is clearly inappropriate for their ears. But then they basically use that to silence the parents. And then they basically use this committee to silence the complaint. So, you think you're filling out this form and something's going to happen. And this committee, especially if when this woman was on it for like a couple days, your complaint is thrown away. If you're a Fairfax County taxpayer and you think they care about your opinion, this is what parents are telling me, that this appointment by Frisch is almost a provocative, over-the-top gesture. Like, you thought you mattered? Let me show you how little I care what you think.
All right. So as you mentioned, the school board member in question is Carl Frisch. Who is Carl Frisch? What are his motivations? What is he doing for the school board in Fairfax County? Does he actually have some sort of agenda?
Yeah, so Carl Frisch is an interesting character. I did sort of a deep dive into him for my 2021 book on schools, Race to the Bottom. And little did I know that he would then go on to become, chairman of the school board. At the time, he was this kind of nobody Democrat operative working for like people like, some of these Democrat activist group.
He worked for Media
behind the
Matters
scenes.
some time ago.
Yeah. And so he ran for office in our little suburban county by raising money across the country on gay issues. So people who supported gay stuff from California would give to him. And by doing that, he basically nationalized a local school board race, and he got $183,000, which was unheard of for a school board race. So he gets on the position that way, and he's not like a school board member who is gay. He is more of a gay school board member, if that makes sense. I don't think anyone really objects to like what your sexual orientation is, but for him, it's sort of the primary motivator. It's the thing that he talks about all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he didn't have kids. He doesn't have kids. He didn't have a college degree at the time. I noticed his bio says he does now. So he may have gotten one like last year. But this is someone with no background in education or children who really wants to be involved in school issues. And the reason is really like gay stuff. And so, and I looked at his Twitter account when I was doing my book a couple of years ago. He's following all these accounts that are like hardcore gay porn. That's in their handle name, that's in their profile picture. Like he's following these accounts, and it's I can't even describe how disgusting and over the top this hardcore porn that he's following with his school board, with his Twitter account that he uses to talk about school board issues. So, this is the guy that he was sworn in, and instead of putting his hand on the Bible as he takes his oath of office, he puts it on a stack of books containing graphic depictions of gay sex, like a book called Flamer, Genderqueer, and Lawn Boy. Lawn Boy is another book that the review committee assessed because a resident complained, and Lawn Boy depicts oral sex by a 10-year-old. And the committee said it has literary value representing the perspective of a significant portion of students in Fairfax County public schools.
So the defining feature of the chairman of the Fairfax County School Board is his obsession with his own sex life and the sex lives of others?
Yes, and in a really extreme and irrational way. For example, when Mitt Romney was running for president in 2012, he wrote an article in the Huffington Post warning that President Romney would modify the U.S. Constitution and force gays to leave the country. So it's like hyperbolic, it's extremist, it is overridingly a Democrat partisan operative, not someone who's, and he did rant,
and by the way, he got that one completely wrong, because Mitt Romney would probably be marching in the streets at a pride rally.
Yeah, I mean, he was wrong about a lot of things. He said Fairfax County is a hotbed of right-wing extremism, right-wing religious extremism.
I'm sure it is.
And, when he was raising money for his school board campaign, he had one of these events. I don't know if it happened. I have the invitation, so I assume it happened. But the fundraising event advertised an appearance by a drag queen. So you're raising money to run for school board by paying to see a drag queen. So I really doubt there are more than a handful of people who think like this in Fairfax County out of the 1.4 million residents who are like, yeah, what I really want from my kids' experience in schools is a whole bunch of gay sex stuff.
Yeah, for sure. The thing I really want for my kid is for a creepy stranger to take over educating them about bizarre sexual practices. That's what I really want. Because if my kid's not going to make it in life unless they have that kind of education. This is crazy. So if Fairfax County was in any meaningful way so-called right wing, you'd have people reacting to this with some outrage, like what is this guy doing? Why is he in the highest position of power in the Fairfax County School Board? Are you sensing that? Are people reacting that way?
I think that people, he won the first time with his massive amount of money. The second time, he kind of, breezed into office as the Democrat incumbent because people don't really know who these people are. I doubt he has any real support, but people do see that D on the name by his name, on the sample ballot and just kind of check the name. I think the one-party state in Fairfax County enables this kind of thing where even most Democrat voters don't actually support it, but he doesn't have to care whether they like what he's doing or not because he knows they are going to vote for him regardless.
Also, his sexual identity is a cudgel in these things. I mean, you've got plenty of people, I'm aware of them, all over Northern Virginia who will vote for him just on that basis. Oh, he's the gay candidate. Okay, we'll vote for him because they're afraid that if they don't, that there'll be some sort of bigot. Well, you should look at his policies and look at what he's actually advancing. It's not to the benefit of your kids.
Yeah, and I mean, none of it has to do with education. This was a springboard for someone with Democrat political ambitions, and he did immediately try to run for the state house, and he lost that Democrat primary. So now he's just back on the school board, which is his second choice. It's not even the job he wanted. He was hoping it would be a springboard to something else. So yeah, I think most parents would rather have people that just have an interest in education, who are parents and who just want a rigorous academic experience for their children.
All right. Well, thank you for constantly giving these issues attention when so few others do. Luke Rosiak over at the Daily Wire. Really appreciate your reporting and your time today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vince.
All right, well, the Farmer's Almanac seems to have gotten it right this year with our nasty winter weather. You know who always gets it right? My guys over at Valor Roofing. You've heard me talk about all of the great things Valor does for our veterans, and they want you to experience that same level of care for your home. This winter, trust Valor to guide you through the storms. Like a trusty old maritime compass, Valor always knows what direction points to home. Valor has completed projects for the Department of the Navy, the GSA, the Smithsonian, and several other federal entities, so you can trust that Valor has the experience to take care of your home. Call 833-83-VALOR now or visit valorhome.com to get the Vince special only for WMAL listeners. Listen to this great deal. It includes up to a $2,000 instant rebate on your new Valor roof, a free upgrade to architectural shingles, plus the peace of mind that comes with working with the absolute best contractor I know, Valor. Experience the Valor difference. Call 833-83-VALOR. Tell them Vince sent you or visit valorhome.com. Honor, respect, and trust your home to Valor. Again, call 833-83-VALOR or go to valorhome.com.
If you're concerned about Joe Biden's age, you probably don't know Joe Biden.
Oh, the media, they spent so much time telling us that Biden's brain is working great. It's working so great. Turns out it's not working at all. The United States Department of Justice, the American news media, now admitting that Joe Biden has a senility problem that we may not be able to overcome. It's been an interesting week, hasn't it? You know, we came in Monday with the text of that abysmal amnesty plus Ukraine funding bill finally being released Sunday night. And by Monday night, it was dead. And that's because of you. That's because of us. That's because of Americans paying attention, reading through this thing and saying, I'm not for this. And so what ended up happening after that? Well, then by Tuesday, the storm is gathering over Mitch McConnell, Republican senators now coming out, registering their objections to his leadership and saying he's not prioritizing this country first. Maybe it's time for a change. Now more and more on the record. And then, of course, as the week wore on, the Supremes have come out, the Supreme Court, and they say that, you know what, this left-wing ballot rigging that's going on in places like Colorado, it's probably going to have to stop. We're waiting on the ruling on that, but boy, the oral arguments went in the right direction in defense of our republic. Then, of course, we get the report from Robert Hur. The media and the Justice Department now forced to acknowledge that Joe Biden's brain is not working, and that's a big deal. And if it was, he could be charged with crimes. But since it's not, well, then why is he still president? Maybe the 25th Amendment needs to be invoked. That conversation now beginning to ramp up. And then also, as a bigger matter, and I think lumping it all together, the reality here is that from Tucker interviewing Vladimir Putin over the course of 2 hours to talk radio, highlighting all of these issues with aggression, deep diving into this awful legislation, exposing all of it to public scrutiny, you get the feeling that we are starting to break through in a meaningful way the old guard of the corporate media. So all in all, I think a good week for America, just heading in the right direction. Are there challenges ahead? For sure, a lot of them. And as the left finds itself slipping away from power, it'll become more and more aggressive, and could get very dangerous as we go forward. So we'll be vigilant to that. But it is just, you know, every night I pray for our country, and I pray that all of us can recognize what are the talents and gifts that we've been given, and how can we use them to A, glorify God, and B, to take care of our family and ourselves. That's it. That's the whole ballgame. And that means taking care of our country, too. So I'm going to say that prayer again tonight. And I just feel good. I feel good right now. A lot ahead. And a big year continues. I didn't even mention the Nevada caucuses yesterday. That wasn't even a close one. What is it, 97, 98% for Donald Trump? That's a landslide. I don't even know what you call that. That's complete and total destruction. Just has absolutely obliterated whatever competition may have existed in Nevada. We've got a big race ahead. The great one, Mark Levin, is up ahead right now on WMAL.